Some breaking news in the Mahendra Mick Patel case. Now, this is a case where Mahendra was actually behind bars for close to 49 days for this alleged crime until he was finally granted bond. Now, what happened? Well, according to the alleged victim here, Mahendra walked into the Walmart and saw this victim sitting in a motorized shopping cart, even though she's not disabled, but she was riding it anyway, maybe for fun, maybe to give her kids a thrill. And when he saw her son sitting on her lap. And according to her, he grabbed her son and tried to kidnap her son right out of her arms. And a tug-of-war ensued. A tug-of-war that lasted about 10 seconds until she finally was able to overpower him. And he then walked off. Well, we got the surveillance footage from Walmart. This was part of the discovery in this case, so we got to see the surveillance footage from Walmart, and it actually shows nothing of the sort. That's not exactly what the surveillance footage shows happened at all. He's walking. There is maybe a second and a half interaction between him and her while she's sitting there where you can't really even see from the camera. And maybe he touches the son. Maybe it looks like he's falling out of the cart of her motorized shopping cart or some other reason. But there is definitely no tug-of-war, nothing that lasted for more than 2 seconds. Forget about 10 seconds. And it doesn't look like he's doing anything other than trying to help a kid make sure he doesn't fall out of a cart. There is no attempted kidnapping at all whatsoever from the surveillance footage. So this was obviously a big miscarriage of justice that he was arrested for this crime that was completely made up out of thin air by this alleged victim. Now, on top of that, what the defense also showed was that this alleged victim is a plaintiff in a lawsuit against Lyft with some also interesting, embellished perhaps, claims against the Lyft driver for acting inappropriately, to say the least. So they wanted to introduce that actually in this case to show that this is a person who embellishes facts and perhaps even makes up facts. So she is still part of that lawsuit. We're not sure what her lawyers are going to do with her with respect to that lawsuit, but that was another incident where the allegations that she made are very interesting and perhaps embellished. So the recent news is that there was a hearing today on this case. The prosecution filed a motion. So instead of me telling you what was filed, we can go and listen in to the hearing. It's not that long, and I'll play for you exactly what happened in court today.
All right, the court will call for consideration that matter concerning the state of Georgia versus Mahendra Patel. Case number 25CR01090. The record can reflect the matter was set by the court on the state's motion pursuant to OCGA section 17-8-3. The record can reflect that Mr. and Ms. Merchant are here representing his interest. Do you waive his presence?
He's
or is he here?
present in the courtroom with his family.
He's here someplace?
Yes, he is. Thank you, Judge.
All right. And Ms.
And he is being represented by Ashley Merchant. Ashley Merchant is a very high-powered defense attorney.
McCauley's representing the interest of the state. She's the one that filed the motion. And I've read the state's bench brief and the motion, and I'm ready.
Thank you, Judge.
And here we go. The prosecutor is getting up to argue.
I'm not going to be overly repetitive of what is already provided in the state's motion, which was filed this morning. The state is making a motion pursuant to 17.8.3 of the official code of Georgia for an entry of null pros as to the following: the district attorney's office for the Cobb Judicial Circuit and Mr. Patel, along with his counsel, Caroline Miller, on her own behalf and on behalf of the minor child, consistent with her election under 1717.1 at SEC, met to discuss their respective views of the above captioned case. That was done on Monday of this week. That election was done after a thorough review of all available facts and circumstances, evaluation of the best interests of the community and goals of the criminal justice system. After both that review and the parties' discussion of their respective positions, the state is satisfied at this point that the ends of justice have been met, and we would move for an entry of null pros.
Merchant.
We have no objection, Judge. Thank you.
All right. I believe it's.
So she's moving to basically not prosecute the case anymore. This is what we also refer to as just a dismissal. That's essentially what she's asking the judge to do here. They don't want to prosecute this case. Now listen to what the judge says here.
It's in the court's discretion, and obviously that's fine with me, knowing what I've seen in the matter.
Knowing what I've seen in the matter.
I appreciate the state looking into it. You've complied with the Victims Notification Act by speaking with the alleged victim in the case.
Yes.
And I'm satisfied. If you present the null pros, I will sign it.
Thank you, Judge.
And that's it. So what happened here is that the prosecutor, went and spoke to the victim. They had a meeting with the victim, and that's what you're required to do in Georgia, that you have to, if you want to drop a case from the prosecutor's standpoint, you got to meet with the victims or the alleged victims and say, hey, look, we know how traumatic this was for you, and we know that you're victims here, but, we don't think that we can win this case, or we don't think we should prosecute this case. Right? Prosecutors don't have to prosecute a case. Think about some other cases, for example. Let's say, let's say Karen Reed, right? Prosecutor does not have to prosecute the case of Karen Reed. If they don't think that they have enough evidence to win the case, or they don't think that or they think that there's doubt whether they have the right person, they don't have to prosecute it. They can just do what this prosecutor did. And this prosecutor, obviously looking at the same surveillance footage that we've seen, and then perhaps even looking over the Lyft lawsuit that we talked about, maybe they realize, this is not the greatest case, and perhaps Mahendra didn't even do anything wrong. And therefore, they met with the alleged victim in this case on Monday, and they probably explained this to her. And they probably said, maybe you just have a different recollection, but I'm just saying, based on the evidence that we saw, there's just nothing to do here. We cannot prosecute the case. We don't feel, we're ethically and morally sound by prosecuting this innocent man. So we are going to drop this case. And that's probably what happened in that meeting. Now, what's going to happen now for Mahendra Mick Patel? Well, he sat in jail for weeks for a crime that he didn't commit. And just looking at that surveillance footage, there is nothing there at all. And he sat in prison. If you think he's not going to be suing, you probably have another thing coming. And he should sue. Nobody wants to sit in prison, and nobody wants to sit in prison for crimes that have to do with children. Okay, the other people in there don't appreciate those type of people. So he probably's got some real horror stories, and I'd love to get him on the channel. So hopefully we'll get him on the channel. I'm going to work on that to hear what his experience was and to talk to him about this case. But this is, I think, just the beginning of the next process here. This was just a big miscarriage of justice. I'm glad that the prosecutor is doing the right thing by dropping the case. And this should be a lesson for other prosecutors that you could drop the case. You could drop cases that are so weak and don't have enough evidence to convict. And especially in this case where it's clear that he did nothing wrong. So we're glad that they got this right. And you see that sometimes justice is done. So we're glad that Mahendra Mick Patel is free now. He's a free man. He's not going to be prosecuted. Now, there is some legal difference between dropping a prosecution and getting a not guilty verdict, for example. There's a difference between jeopardy or not. But for all intents and purposes, the prosecution is never going to prosecute him again anyway for this case. So this case is good as over. And now the question is who to sue, how much to sue for, and what are the different causes of action that's going to be part of that complaint. But that's probably what he should do anyway at this point. So that's going to be it for the Mahendra Mick Patel case. I'm glad that this is the end of the case. I'm glad we don't have to cover that trial because, and it would have been interesting to cover because, the prosecution doesn't have a case, but they've realized that they don't have a case and that's why they're dropping it. So we're glad that we don't have to cover cases like this where it's clear that the person is innocent. The prosecutor did the right job here and just happy to be part of it. So that's going to be it for now. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and like, and we will see you next time.